We begin Advent in the darkness. It is a curious thing that we count the beginning of each day at midnight. For most of the world, we begin our day in the darkness. People of Jewish faith, however, consider each day begins and ends at sunset. The light disappears and the long, dark night begins. But in either understanding, we are eagerly waiting for the light of dawn and the promise of the sun's return to brighten our days. This has been a particularly difficult year for the whole world. Pick a subject and you can find discouraging news in terrible abundance. Weather, terrible hurricanes, more than ever recorded, made landfall. Unimaginable flooding in the Sudan, melting ice caps, terrible fires in Siberia as the tundra melts and releases more methane. There is worldwide pandemic wreaking havoc across the planet. Millions have become ill and died. Political polarization has gripped the world as well. The U.S. is not alone in this division and the violence it has caused. Racial tensions are at new highs. We could go on, but I think you get the point. We are the people living in the darkness of these difficult times. As dark as these times are, the world has been worse. After the Great War of 1915 to 17, where millions of soldiers died, the world was hit by the flu pandemic in 1918 and millions of people died again. Then followed the Roaring Twenties and the market crash of 1929, leading the world into a prolonged depression. Each nation dealt with the depression in different ways. But in Germany, dealing with the defeat, economic collapse, and then depression, the result was the Nazi oppression and the subjugation of Europe. Viktor Frankl was a young psychotherapist in Germany. His practice was just taking off when the oppression began. He had an opportunity to flee to the U.S., but chose to stay and take care of his parents. Eventually arrested and sent to the concentration camps, Frankl lost everything: his parents, his wife, his practice, and his standing. Now he was just another prisoner, forced into working long hours with little food. He came to a low point as he watched countless of other prisoners choose to end their misery themselves rather than keep living under their terrible conditions. But Frankl held on to his sense of self, hoping for some sign that he had a future beyond the camps. In his amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning, he writes about one morning when there was a glimmer of hope. He writes, "Another time we were at work in the trench. The dawn was gray around us. Gray was the sky above. Gray the snow and the pale light of dawn. Gray the rags in which my fellow prisoners were clad. Gray their faces. I was again conversing silently with my wife, or perhaps I was struggling to find the reason for my sufferings, my slow dying. In a last violent protest against the hopelessness of imminent death, I sensed my spirit piercing through the enveloping gloom. I felt it transcend that hopeless, meaningless world. And from somewhere I heard a victorious yes in answer to my question of the existence of an ultimate purpose. At that moment, a light was lit in a distant farmhouse which stood on the horizon, as if painted there. In the midst of the miserable gray of a dawning morning in Bavaria, et lux in tenebris lucet, and the light shineth in the darkness." As we light one candle this evening, let it be the sign of hope for our future. God has not abandoned us. Like the cry of Isaiah, "Oh, that the Lord our God might knock down the gates of heaven and come down to be with us." On this first Sunday of Advent, we only light one candle, the candle of hope. This candle reminds us to hope for more light, more candles to come, as the day of Christ's coming draws near.